The Ultimate Fighter began in 2005, and it's still going to this day after 33 seasons. The reality show of the UFC produced many fighters who went on to do some amazing things. And in this video, we are going to look at the top 5 best to come out of the show. My criteria will be based on championship accolades and some other stats to break ties. The best fighter to ever come out of The Ultimate Fighter is Kamaru Usman. Before entering the TUF Season 21, Blackzilians vs. ATT, he had a 5-1 record, with 1 submission lost, and all of his 5 wins came via TKO from punches, something that later in his career would become scarce. In the show, he won 2 fights by decision, and disputed the final in 2015, where he became the winner of the season by submission. After his UFC debut, he put together a great win streak of 9 fights in a row with 1 submission, 1 knockout, and 7 unanimous decisions, which alludes to my earlier point about his finishing rate having dropped considerably. With 9 straight wins, he got his title shot in 2019 against Woodley, who had defended the belt 4 times by that point. Usman would dominate his way to a unanimous decision, winning all 5 rounds, outstriking him 5-1 and beginning Woodley's losing streak, which wouldn't see him win ever again in his MMA career. Kamaru went on to defend the welterweight title 5 times with 2 rematches amongst them, the first with Masvidal and the second with Colby. Against Masvidal, he won the first fight via unanimous decision and the second via KO in the second round, his only second ever clean knockout, the other one being against Moraes in 2017. With Colby, the first fight, he got a TKO win in the 5th round, and broke his jaw in the process. The rematch he won by unanimous decision. His other title defense was against Burns, which he won by TKO in the 3rd. The guy who won all of his fights before the UFC by technical knockout, and after getting into the promotion, began a huge decision streak, returned to his vintage ways, and built a super strong legacy with impressive finishes against great opponents. Usman is only behind Hughes and GSP as title defenses are concerned, his 5 against Matt's 7 and George's 9. His reign would come to an end in 2022, with a KO lost by head kick to Leon in the 5th round of a fight he was winning. This began a 3-fight losing streak, one being an immediate rematch for the belt against Edwards that he lost by decision, and the other when he went up to middleweight to fight against Chimaev on short notice, losing in the same fashion. His last fight broke his losing streak in 2025 against Buckley, making his current record 21-4. Despite being 38 years old, he still has a chance to fight for the title again, but the welterweight division is very competitive at the moment, and he hasn't been very active. No matter what happens in the future, one thing is for sure. Usman is the most accomplished athlete to ever come out of The Ultimate Fighter. The second best fighter to come out of TUF is Alexandre Pantoja. Before he got into The Ultimate Fighter Season 24, he had an extensive MMA record bigger than anybody on this list, with 18 fights, 16 wins, and 2 decision losses. He had 3 fights in The Ultimate Fighter house, 2 wins being by unanimous decision and submission, and 1 loss by decision. In 2017, he made his UFC debut after 12 fights in the promotion, in which he won 9 and lost 3, making it the 2nd longest road to a title shot in this list. He finally got his opportunity to fight for the belt in 2023, and won a split decision against Brandon Moreno, another fighter who we will see on this list later on. Pantoja defended the belt 4 times with 2 submissions and 2 decisions, making him the 2nd best flyweight in the UFC behind only Demetrius Johnson, who has 11 title defenses, one of the hardest records to beat in MMA. In 2025, he lost the belt to Joshua Van in the most unfortunate way possible, with an injury to his arm in the 1st round while bracing a fall. Pantoja, in all of his 6 losses from 36 fights in nearly 2 decades as a professional fighter, has never been knocked out or submitted. All his losses are by decision, except for the TKO loss, of course. But since it was an injury that his opponent had no merit in causing, I would still say he never got truly stopped. At 36 years of age, and with a 30-6 record, I believe he can still extend his legacy after he heals up and hopefully gets an immediate title shot. But for the moment, he already is the 2nd best fighter to come out of The Ultimate Fighter. The 3rd best fighter to come out of TUF is TJ Dillashaw. He had a 4-0 record before getting into the 14th season of The Ultimate Fighter, with 2 submissions, 1 decision, and 1 KO. He won all 3 fights in the house, cementing him a spot in the finals. He faced Dodson in the finale and lost the fight by knockout in round 1 back in 2011. TJ went on to be a 2-time champion in the bantamweight division. He had a 5-2 record in the UFC before getting his first title shot against Renan Barão in 2014, a fight he dominated on the feet for 4 rounds and finished off with a head kick followed by punches in the 5th. He defended the belt 2 times against Soto in a last-minute replacement and against Barão in his first rematch, winning both by knockout. TJ lost the belt to the former champion Dominic Cruz in 2016 by a split decision. After winning 2 fights in a row, he got his second title shot against Cody Garbrandt, a former training partner who beat Cruz for the belt. They coached season 25 of TUF before their fight in 2017. TJ won the fight by KO in the second, after getting dropped in the first to regain the belt. They've had an immediate rematch, which he won by knockout again, this time in the first round. Dillashaw then went down to the flyweight division to fight for the belt against Cejudo. He lost by KO in the first round, later popped for EPO, and was stripped of his bantamweight belt in 2019. 2 years later, he came back, won a fight against Sandhagen by split decision, and a year later got his third and final title shot against Aljamain. He lost by technical knockout in the second round. In the fight, it's clear that he went in injured, since his shoulder came out of the socket several times, and he wasn't been able to do much of anything, given the severity of the injury. After the fight in 2022, he retired at 36 years of age with a 17-5 record. His shoulder was never the same. TJ is tied with 4 other fighters in the bantamweight division, with 3 defenses. Despite all the ups and downs, he made many impressions in the sport, and one of them is being the 3rd best fighter to ever come out of TUF. The 4th best fighter to come out of The Ultimate Fighter is also the only woman on this list, Rose Namajunas. Out of all the fighters listed here, she was the one with the fastest track to the show. Basically, the year after she became a pro, she was fighting in the UFC, only having a 2-1 record. That was back in 2014 on Season 20, which would crown the inaugural champion of the new women's 115-pound strawweight division in the UFC. Rose won all her 3 fights in the house by submission, and fought in the finale against Carla Esparza, a fight in which she got dominated on the ground, and ended up losing by submission in the 3rd round. After 4 wins and 1 loss, she had her first title shot in 2017 against Joanna, who had been tearing up the strawweight division since beating the woman that beat Rose and Carla Esparza. Joanna had 5 defenses up to that point. Rose pulled off the upset with a KO win in the first round. After defending it against Joanna in the rematch, she lost it in the next fight, getting knocked out for the first time in her career against Jessica. After avenging her loss, this time without a belt on the line, she got her second title shot against Weili, and had the same result she had in her first shot, another KO in the first round. The path to losing the belt was very similar as well. Won the rematch by decision and lost it in the very next fight to the woman who beat her to win the Ultimate Fighter. This time by split decision in one of the worst title fights you will ever see, with only 68 combined strikes in the whole 5 rounds. After the loss, Rose went up to the flyweight division, where she currently has 3 wins and 3 losses. At 33 years of age, with a 14-8 record, she could still find her way to the top. But in this division, she lost to every fighter ranked in the top 5 so far. Regardless of what the future holds, Rose was able to shine the brightest when it mattered most. And here in our list, she takes the 4th place as the best fighter to come out of The Ultimate Fighter. I decided to leave the 5th place with a tie between a fighter in Michael Bisping that defended the belt once, and another in Brandon Moreno that was a 2-time undisputed champion. Bisping went into Season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter with a 10-0 record with, get this, all finishes, 8 of them being TKOs. Then he won his 2 fights in the house, also by TKO, and then won the season finale as well, and his next 2 fights the same way, making it a 15 finishing streak with 13 TKOs. It's funny to think that the guy associated with not having power actually had 18 out of his 30 wins by knockout. I get that most of them were outside the UFC, and they were more damage accumulation than clean knockouts, but it's still an interesting fact. Bisping had the longest road to the title out of everyone on this list, after 25 fights with 18 being wins and 7 being losses in a span of 10 years. All of a sudden, after appearing he would never get his shot, he gets it as a late replacement against Rockhold in 2016 and wins by knockout in the first round, a clean knockout as well, the out-cold type. Next, he avenged his KO loss against Henderson to defend the middleweight title, and after that, lost it in his next fight against GSP in 2017. Again, on short notice, Bisping fought his last fight, losing by KO to Gastelum and retiring with a 30-9 record at the age of 38. Moreno had an 11-3 record before getting into the Ultimate Fighter Season 24, made exclusive to flyweights with the goal of finding an opponent to Demetrius Johnson. Pantoja was on that season as well, and he ended up being his one and only fight in the show, which he lost by submission. Brandon won 3 fights in a row, but after 2 straight losses was cut by the UFC. He got the flyweight belt in LFA and was back in the UFC in his very next fight. Then, after 4 more fights, in which he won 3 and had his first draw, his title shot finally came against Figueiredo in 2020, which ended up being the second draw of his career and the beginning of a quadrilogy as well. They had an immediate rematch, and Moreno finally won by submission to become UFC champion, but lost it to Figueiredo again in the very next fight by unanimous decision. Next, he won the interim title, and then, you guessed it, he fought Figueiredo for a 4th time, making it the first and only quadrilogy in the UFC, hopefully the last as well. Seeing 2 guys fight each other 4 times, pretty much back-to-back, is crazy. Maybe if there were 2 years or more in between each fight, I could go for it. Moreno came out on top with the last win via doctor stoppage in the 3rd round, and then he lost it immediately after, to the same man that beat him in TUF, Pantoja. At 32 years old, Moreno finds himself with a 3-2 record after his last fight for the title, and it's very possible he can extend his legacy. So who is more deserving of the 5th place? I usually make an argument to one or the other, but here I think the tie is perfectly fitting. Their circumstances are so vastly different that it makes it too complicated to compare them. Bisping probably would never have gotten a title shot if it wasn't on short notice. Moreno earned his, but in a division that was less disputed, so much so that I don't see a quadrilogy ever happening in a weight class as cutthroat as middleweight. At the same time, Bisping defended the belt against an elderly Dan Henderson, while pretty much every other top 5 fighter was available to fight, and later lost against GSP, who came out of a 4-year layoff, and was going up a weight division. On the other hand, Moreno had 6 title fights, became a 3-time champion, even though one of those times was for the interim belt, but he was never able to defend any of them once. So I think the tie is the perfect place for both of them, and even though I just made a ton of criticisms, they are both awesome fighters, and I'm glad to see them share the 5th place for the best fighters to come out of TUF. With the list completed, let's take a look at some stats to close it all off. Besides the 6 champions that came out of the Ultimate Fighter mentioned, there were 10 more to hold the UFC belt without ever defending it, making a total of 16, with interim champions included. No weight class has ever had more than 2 UFC champions to come out of TUF. 11 of them won their season, and 5 of them lost it. Only 2 weight classes never had a champion, heavyweight and female featherweight. There are 3 seasons tied with producing 2 champions, seasons 24, 20, and 18. And there are 2 seasons where 5 fighters got title shots, season 1 and season 18. Speaking of which, there were 38 fighters to come out of TUF to challenge for a belt, interim title included also. 12 fighters ended up becoming future coaches. 3 of them actually coached 2 times, and for season 34, the coaches Bisping and Cormier are going to be doing it for their 3rd time. The last thing I only realized while writing this video is that there was a particular event that saw 3 fighters from TUF in title fights. UFC 217 had TJ and Rose win the title, and Bisping lose his attempt to defend his. Thanks for watching. If you see a mistake, please let me know. These videos require so much research and editing that some incorrect information is bound to slip by. And until next time.